Are you ready to improve your health without the unrealistic BS? You're tuning in to Healthy Not Hungry, the podcast that believes that health begins in your mind. I'm your host, clinical nutritionist, PT, and mental health enthusiast Rach, and I'm so excited to have you join me. Hello and welcome to another episode of Healthy Not Hungry. I'm your host Rach. Thank you so much for joining us today. So today I want to talk about why carbohydrates are just as important as protein when it comes to your health and well-being goals. Now, this is a thing, like for years, the poor carbohydrates have copped the bad rap here about how they make you gain weight, they make you sluggish, blah, blah, blah. Well, I'm here to change that narrative for you because I personally think as a nutritionist and a PT that carbohydrates are just as important as protein when it comes to your health and well-being. So that might mean when it comes to training, when it comes to weight loss, increasing your metabolism, increased toning, when it comes to your brain health. So when it comes to feeling good and creating neurotransmitters, having a good memory, having a good focus, having good mental energy, having good sleep, I personally think that carbs are just as important. And yeah, I want to tell you why, because I think, as I said, they've kept a bad rap, and I really feel that this is a message that is beneficial for anyone listening. So first things first, when carbs, if you ever heard of the term glycogen, I want to break that down for you. So glycogen is your body's stored form of carbohydrates. So it's essentially like when a car gets petrol and the petrol stays in the tank. When we eat carbohydrates, it turns into the form of glycogen so that we can use it to fuel our muscles, is probably the best way of putting it. So when you don't have enough glycogen, you tire out quickly, you might feel weak or sluggish, and you're more likely to burn muscle for energy instead of fat, which is such a shame because if you're burning and you're trying to burn fat and you want to keep your muscle, obviously losing muscle really kind of defeats the purpose here. So glycogen is super duper important. And on the other note, when you have enough glycogen, you have more energy, you perform better, you preserve lean muscle mass, and you burn more fat after your workout. So as I said, it's actually really beneficial. So if I was to make someone a meal plan, for example, I will actually match most of the time, obviously it's an individualized approach, but I would actually match their carbohydrates to their protein, provided it fits within their calorie range, because you can match, the amount of grams of carbs, but it might totally spin out your calorie range. So that's the really important caveat here, is make sure that if you are matching your carbs to your protein, it fits within your calorie range. But that's enough of that. If you have questions on that, as usual, my inbox is always open. But I think it's really important to, understand that from a training perspective, from a weight loss, muscle gain perspective, carbohydrates are super important. But from a health and well-being perspective, which let's face it is my favorite part of this, particularly when it comes to brain health, because I am all about mental health and improving our mental health and our brain functioning and capacity. So for me, that is a huge one. But it's so good for supporting our brain function. So if you didn't know, your brain runs primarily on glucose, and when the glycogen stores are low, mental clarity, focus, and mood can drop. So basically, if you feel like you're getting more brain fog, irritability, and poor concentration, chances are your glycogen levels are a little bit low. So you may need to look at how many carbs you're getting. It also helps to regulate blood sugar stability. So when it comes to things like cravings, a lot of the time when we have cravings or energy crashes, it's because our blood sugar drops rapidly and quickly. So consistent glycogen storage from balanced meals helps to prevent blood sugar crashes, cravings, and energy dips. So this also supports a better hormonal balance, especially for women who are in their peri or postmenopausal phase. Super duper important that you are looking after your blood sugar levels, because if not, the negative side effects definitely take over life. As we said, it helps to protect muscle mass because it means that if your body's got adequate carbs and glycogen stores, it will eat those instead of your muscle for energy. It also helps to improve recovery and reduce soreness. Now, I know a lot of the time we just look at protein for that, but it is super duper helpful because it helps the muscles to recover faster and also reduces your DOMS, which if you don't know is your delayed onset muscle soreness. So that's how sore your muscles get after exercising, which peaks at 48 hours. So that's why 2 days after, you always feel it more than 1 day after, most commonly. As we kind of just touched on, it helps to balance those hormones. So basically, when you are depleted of glycogen, so you're not having enough carbohydrates, you can actually elevate your cortisol levels. Now, if you've been listening for a while, you know cortisol. If not, cortisol is the stress hormone, which does increase when we are stressed, when we have stuff going on, when it doesn't have to necessarily be mental or emotional stress. If you're putting your body under physical stress, this will increase as well. So keeping those glycogen stores healthy will help to regulate your stress, sleep, your menstrual and hormonal health. So super duper important to get enough carbs in, especially for women. I think, you know, a lot of the time we hear like in any phase of life, but it's so true, like whether you're someone who is on a fertility journey or whether you're even a teenager and you're just trying to balance those hormones out, whether you're postpartum or, you know, whether you're entering that phase where you are perimenopausal or postmenopausal, our hormones play a massive role, especially as females, and it's so important to make sure we are looking after them. And this is one of the ways we can do that. So even things like, I want you to think about it this way. When every day our energy and our moods affect what we do, right? So if we are making sure that we're eating adequate amount of carbs to look after our energy and our moods, we're increasing our quality of life. So I feel like I've kind of just rambled a lot of different facts at you about why we need carbohydrates, why glycogen's important, and what it does in our bodies. But it's so true, like it's, for some people, it can be a massive missing puzzle piece that you may not have considered. So if you are someone who feels like maybe your training's not as effective and maybe you're not maintaining that muscle mass, maybe your brain function's not working, you're always tired, you always have low energy, you're crashing, you feel extremely stressed, your sleep's not well, maybe look at how your carbohydrates are. Are you eating enough carbs? Are they balancing out with the other macronutrients that you're eating daily? And just remembering that carbs aren't bad. There's many great carbs, like obviously your fruit and vegetables are carbohydrates, super important, your whole grains. So, you know, look into it, and if you feel like that's something you're missing, maybe try increasing it a bit and see if you notice a difference, because I guarantee you, if you're eating good quality carbohydrates, so once again, it's always quality, not quantity, but if you're eating the right amount of good quality carbohydrates, I guarantee it'll make you feel a little bit better and function a little bit better too. But that's all that I've got for today. So I hope that you've learned something and taken it away. If you have, make sure you share this with someone if you think they could benefit from hearing it, because I'd love to spread the word. And also, if you haven't liked or subscribed or left a review, that would mean the world to me. But have a great week, and I'll be in your ear again next week. Well, that's all we have time for today, but thank you so much for tuning in and joining us once again. If you haven't already, please subscribe, like, and leave a review on your favorite podcast streaming site, or share with someone who you think could benefit from this episode. Don't forget to follow us on your favorite social media at Healthy Not Hungry or Healthy Not Hungry Podcast.